Well, welcome. This is amazing to have a full group of people here. Prior to the Leonkoro Quartet's performance tonight, I'm pleased to have them all here with me. So please join me in welcoming them. I always forget to say who I am. My name is David Plylar, and I'm with the music division. And one of my privileges is I get to listen to a lot of groups and help to determine who we could invite to come play in the Coolidge Auditorium. And we're so pleased to have this particular quartet here to play this particular program tonight. So we're very excited. the I thought we could just start with uh, one of the interesting aspects of your trip here, which is that you are trying some different instruments tonight. You want to say which instruments you've ended up choosing to play?
Wants to start?
Well, I have the honor to play the Guarneri del Gesù, which was owned by Fritz Kreisler.
And the
I play the one cello that's here, so I had no choice.
the Castle Barco, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I had the luxury of choosing between two, and I picked the Stradivarius, the X Baird. I don't know. Yeah, it's fantastic.
And I have the privilege of playing the Ward Stradivarius from the 1700s. Wonderful instrument.
That's great. You know, one of the things that we noticed when we came in is that they were extremely particular, especially in the violins, about how to which ones they were going to choose and how they were going to play together. In fact, we thought, you know, this would be the great beginning of some sort of heist movie where you have like a shell game set up where you can switch the instruments. So obviously they're trying to follow that. But luckily, you know, you could trust you, I guess. But what was amazing about that process is that we got a chance to see and hear, and they would send out one member of the quartet to listen to all the others play, and say no, or yes, but or different things. And so, how was it that we came to? I mean, it's an odd thing. I mean, piano's so used to it because they always have a new instrument wherever they go to play, but usually string players have their own instrument that they get to play, and so it's a certain comfort that you have with that. How is it that you go about this process of selecting when you had these different instruments on offer?
I mean, admittedly, this was very new for us. I'd never seen it anywhere else to have the opportunity to do something like this. So, I mean, we were very lucky to have a few days. We arrived in the US on Tuesday?
2 days ago. Yeah. 3 days ago.
So we have. So we took one day of looking what fits to the person as well as in the quartet. I mean the violins. I mean they're all fantastic. So it's it's a nuance. It was actually very, very fun because everything sounded great. It just the little things.
Yeah, it's also I mean, because there was only the one cello which I love. It sounded negative when I said it, but I'm not sad that I had no choice. I would have chosen this cello over, I think, any other cello. I'm quite sure. And it's just when you play it yourself in a room like this, and you think, oh, that's great, and then you move to the auditorium. Which is a bigger hall, then you already have a different feeling. Then if you play together, you already have a different feeling. So it's all these things that you have to keep in mind. And then also, like you said, send someone out there and listen how the balance is, if the two violins play together, and if they change the instruments. It's super interesting for us because the violin also sounds different on each player. So we have to also keep that in mind. So it's a process. I mean, we had limited time because we wanted to choose in one day. I think if we would have gotten really into it, we could have taken like 3 days.
I mean, I think, sorry, back to the explaining the heist part, because we tried it out here solo, and we played for each other and said what fits as for the player. But then we went into the auditorium, and it turned out the balance was not what we expected from the instruments, and that's why we asked to get them out again and try some other instruments. So yeah, it was a bit of a procedure, I would say.
So did you go directly for the Fulton Expert Tuscan Medici? That's the neat name of it. The viola, because you had 2 violas to choose to.
So I mean, I played the other one first. Like,
Casabelli?
that's that one. I mean, they're both amazing. I thought I would pick the smaller one, but the Expert has an incredible sound that it made it very easy to play. So, which in this short amount of time for me it was ideal, and yeah, that's why I chose it.
Wonderful. I mean, one last, I don't mean to belabor this, but one of the more interesting configurations I heard was when you had the Chrysler as the second violin. And that was kind of an unusual thing for us to hear, but it was just because they were playing the beginning of the Mendelssohn quartet that we were going to hear kind of over and over again to hear how they, I don't mean to like tell all the secrets or anything like that, but it was just, it was kind of an incredible thing. So I imagine there were, from your vantage point to the string players, you're probably thinking about different things than maybe the average concert goer, but can you see advantages to any configuration really, but you just went with the one that felt the most comfortable, that felt the most right, or is that
the one that felt like it was us as a quartet? Actually, we also didn't. I wasn't. I was the one listening, and we all listened a bit. But for violins, I listened, and honestly, I went with 1, 2, or 3. I didn't know which instrument it was. If I didn't see it, then they have to sing. But we went with that configuration that sounded like us the most.
That's always a good idea, because if you try different instruments and there's one Stradivari and you don't want to know what the Stradivari is, but now there was 3 Stradivari, so it was sometimes.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, you might color your choice there.
Yeah.
Influenced. Well, let's talk about the program. I think this is such a fascinating program for a number of reasons. Not the least of which is the first piece on the program by Henriëtte Bosmans, right? Dutch composer, with sort of an interesting background, but this is her only string quartet, I believe. And what drew you to it? How did you come to get to know this piece?
Well, we discovered it on YouTube. One night, I was scrolling through a channel which is discovering unforgotten pieces, or pieces by composers which are not played that often. And we were looking at that time for a quartet, which is maybe a good opening piece for a concert, so not too long, the direction of 15 minutes. And we like this impressionistic, Debussy-like atmosphere. And also we have, so Mayo is Dutch, so we thought that's maybe a good work to play, and because there's also no other really Dutch composers for string quartet, yes, I know about. So it also represents a bit of our quartet, and that's why we chose this program, or this particular piece. And of course, then with the Beethoven and Mendelssohn, there's a very strong connection between those 2 composers, but the Bosmans is a bit stands alone, in their program maybe.
Yeah, it's a very different thing, but it's also, I don't know, it struck me as very unique. This is a composer I did not know before you introduced it to us through this program.
That she has an amazing. She composed a lot of cello pieces, and very beautiful sonatas, and and it's all. We also always try to have a 20th or a 21st century work in our program, and it's of course there's some that are played quite often, but then to have one that's really not so often on the stage is also important to us to, because these composers who are forgotten are often forgotten for reasons that are not how do you say, not justified. Thank you very much. So this is also a part of our mission, I think. And I mean, you will decide for yourself if the piece is good. But we love the piece, and we played it a few times now in different countries, and it always was a nice opening to the evening.
The piece is from 1927, I think, and it's quite excited. So it's quite old, but we're playing the piece for the first time. We're premiering the piece at many venues, so that's quite exciting.
I would say it's a premiere here. I'm almost certain.
Yeah, I think the string quartet was never played on 4 or 3 struts in the Delches. I guess, I don't know.
Well, I for one can just say that I really appreciate that attitude of trying to bring back these pieces, because I think that there are lots of different forces that tend to push these things out of the repertoire that have nothing to do with the quality of the work or the innate beauty of it and stuff. So it's really wonderful to get a chance to hear these guys. So thank you for that. Then you'll close out the first half with a short Mendelssohn piece, but the Mendelssohn work that you're doing is really quite a fraught piece from a teenager, still a teenager, I think at that point, at 18 or 19, and not written too long after Beethoven had passed away. And so it was a kind of a wonderful thing to see a composer grapple with, kind of recognize what Beethoven was doing, at least to the extent that he could, that quickly right after the late string quartets came out for Beethoven. What do you play all the Mendelssohn quartets, or was this particular quartet one that drew you in?
So we're quite a young quartet, so we didn't have the chance to play all of them, but we are planning on playing all of them because we love Mendelssohn. And this particular quartet, I would say, is together with the Opus 80, those are the 2 most famous ones, and we played a few other before, and now we wanted to also play this very popular one, because it has so much, maybe also because it's so inspired by Beethoven. It has a lot of string quartet essence in it, I would say, where you really grow as an ensemble if you work on it. It's a piece that's incredibly fun to play, but also to work on. And already the beginning is just a string quartet heaven, I would say.
Well, in that beginning is its own end as well, in the way it comes back at the end. Although, one comment I would just make about this piece is that, to me, it's one of the most amazing examples of simple writing that can be the most exquisite in terms of the beauty just very basic part writing, but it's like the right choices at the right moments, and it's amazing how he's able to do that right at such a young age. And I think do people know this piece? How many of you have heard Mendelssohn II? Okay, so not everybody. This will be your first opportunity to hear it. It's I don't have to keep saying it's motivating. It's okay. But there is a lot. Can you say a bit more about this sense of connection to Beethoven that you feel?
So there are some if you know the late Beethoven quartets, there are some very obvious ones that are almost really copied, the structure. But there are also for me as middle voice, there are a lot of things that are also in Beethoven, just a rhythm. Different notes, but just a rhythm, but it's exactly Beethoven. It's extremely fun to get that out. Just enjoying it on my own. It's nothing you might, even if you're just hearing it as an audience member or just hearing recording. It's not something you think, oh, that's Beethoven, but it's actually exactly what he decided to take over.
It's for nerds.
Yeah, it's for nerdy. Yeah, I'm trying to get not too nerdy. Yeah.
But also there is a very strong connection between the last work of Beethoven, or one of the last works you ever wrote, but also the Opus 135 is the 16th string quartet from Beethoven in his last. And in the last movement, he is kind of questioning everything, or with the question, must it be? I hope it's the right translation from German. Muss es sein, yeah. Must it be? And which breaks out into a very positive, after the introduction, into a very positive and joyful last movement. And Mendelssohn picks this up and asks in a way with he takes also inspiration from one of his own songs, but also one of the questions he writes into the score of this second string quartet is it true?
This is probably right.
Yeah, is this wahr? Yeah, and so. And also with this, that he comes back in the end of the fourth movement, back to the introduction to the themes of all the movements, is something he took, which he doesn't do in the other quartets anymore after that. You know, it's something he took clearly inspiration from Beethoven. And you have also literally...
Literal quotes.
From some of his other quartets, and also that he's taking this motive. He has a motive which is a descending melody kind of structure. It's very rough to say like this, but he takes this structure for every theme of every movement. And this is also something Beethoven kind of developed, this motive, getting a melody out of a motive, and developing it with every movement. So in the second movement of Mendelssohn, you have a choral-like fugue theme, very lyrical, and in the third movement, he transforms it into a scherzo allegretto, joyful theme. And this is the same material. And if you know this and recognize this, it's a huge joy to listen. Yeah.
I think also this theme in the slow movement of the Mendelssohn is introduced as by the viola in the fugue, and I think that's, if you know the Opus 95 quartet by Beethoven, that slow movement also has a fugue which is introduced by the viola. So I think that's also one of those nerdy.
Serioso.
Yeah. Well, having said all that, I mean, he did copy and he took inspiration, but he did manage to make it his own. So that is what makes it so great also.
I was hoping that you would bring up that Opus 135 connection. Though this is a genuine question because I didn't research it. Would an edition that he would have seen at that time had the quotation in it? I can't remember if the first edition had it for whether Mendelssohn would have seen it. I don't know. Did it, or do you happen to know?
We don't know. I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, so it's kind of a nice, just like that.
Yeah. You mean in the Mendelssohn score? Or?
No, when the Mendelssohn was exploring the Beethoven quartets, it was not that far past its initial publication. I don't know. That's a good question.
Not saying anything.
But it also just kind of shows how attuned he was to, because that's the same sort of the idea of answering questions in music is something that, you know, lots of other composers would eventually do, but you know, it's so clearly related to that early song because that it makes it, you know, the key makes it clear in a letter at one point that it has that intended relationship, which is also good to know that it's not just he just is kind of like the piano, so I could throw it in there, you know. Okay, well, this is, I mean, one thing, just so you all know, we don't have any manuscripts for Opus 13, but we do have a partial manuscript from Opus 12, which is the other, the so-called first quartet of Mendelssohn, and that one has, I think it's 25 bars or something in Mendelssohn's hand in the middle of a copyist manuscript, which is a really strange thing to kind of find, but my theory is that he just, the copyist needed a break, it needed to get done, so Mendelssohn went over and just, you know, kind of kept filling it in for him or something, because it's very just it's not like a super special moment. It's just, it's just kind of, I think, took over while he had a hand cramp or something. But so then we get on to the second half of the program, which is Beethoven's Opus 131. The Library of Congress does have some sketch material from that quartet that will be on display in the other room that you'll be able to see and take a look at. It's a little hard to decipher, but that's, Beethoven for you. It's actually a really interesting thing to compare their their penmanship to see, see which one you can read more easily. But 131 is it's kind of a monster of a piece. Like these are some major things to kind of pair together. I really love it. I'm there for it. Tell me a bit about your relationship to this piece. And it's the idea is that 7 movements and it's all kind of continuous. There's not really any breaks. There are pauses and things like that, but there's not a break. What do you talk to me about it?
Well, it is when we decided that we want to play this piece, we started to play it more than 1 year before the first concert because we knew it's going to take time. That's our general approach on pieces. We try to start them very early and let them rest a bit, like, I don't know, like a cheese or
I was going to say wine, but
wine needs some time to
Develop.
develop, and then when you come back to it, there's a lot of work done without you practicing it, so when we decided to play this piece, we went to our mentors to get some lessons with it before. We saw Alfred Brendel teaching us in London with this piece, and of course Günther Pichler in Madrid from the Alban Berg Quartet. But still, when we played it the first time, it felt quite fresh, yeah. And I think it's one of these pieces you are never finished with every piece, but especially the late Beethovens, I think, are pieces which will be with us for our entire life. And as Norbert Brenin said from the Amadeus Quartet, the only reason to stay together as a quartet is to get better at playing the Beethoven quartets. And I think the 131 is one of these pieces where, this is so monumental alone that it has 7 movements and you don't get a break, you can't tune in between. It's just 40 minutes goes through, and there's a message there's a rumor that this was the favorite quartet of Beethoven, also what he wrote. I think he said this is the one he's most happy with, and for a lot of people this is one of the most complete works in music history. And I think also for us it becomes something very holy. It's really monumental and something to grow on. And
also, I think Franz Schubert wanted this played at his deathbed. So it's the favorite piece of many famous musicians, also that we know, but also of famous composers like Schubert.
Yeah, and Schubert also said, "What is there left to write after he saw or heard this piece?" So
I think he meant it quite well.
So he did. Sorry, he did get to hear it. Schubert.
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If somebody loved him hanging on that would not be good. But wow. Okay. Well, this piece is quite. So I guess the one other question I would ask about it is, with the piece that is so long and big, and it has such variability, even though it has a lot of very consistent things throughout the whole piece. How do you approach? How do you just approach it generally? Even just the beginning is, it almost feels like I'm not speaking about this with the way that you're playing it, but just the idea of tuning it in this key, and it's a tenuous thing. It's like this that it's like a tightrope that you're walking. At least it feels like that to me, to get to a place where because it starts off with a solo line and just how do you put it together and how do you approach it? That's kind of a broad and not so vague question. So apologize.
Yeah. I mean, we approach most pieces in the beginning the same way, which is we don't meet, but we practice on our own. Because a piece like this is technically so demanding for each and every player that to know your own part and to know the score is really essential to get together and then work on it. And then, I mean, there's really no big secret that we can share about how we approach these pieces, because if we can play them on our own, we get together and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. Or is there more?
So the idea is that you have your own idea of the piece, you put them together, you argue about it, or you agree on it, and that's how slowly things go forward. But things change also during concerts, during the general rehearsals. So it keeps changing. So it's still, of course, it's still also changing now.
Yeah, all of the time. I mean, also, I mean, we played this piece and we're still quite young. So just just to know, I mean, this piece is alive for longer than we are alive, and it will be much longer than we are alive. But to have the chance for the short span that we are on this world to work with this piece and give our own emotion and our own life into it is, I think, one of the biggest privileges for us. Yeah. And like we all said, it changes and it evolves, and it's so funny because I mean, the music, of course, it is written and it's there. It's just it doesn't change, but still there's something so very alive about it. And yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you. That's beautifully said. I really appreciate it. Well, does anybody else have anything to say about the program, or could you tell us a bit about what you have been up to and what you're doing next? I'm very curious about that too.
So we're starting here for our North American tour. This is the first place we're going this year. It's our second time in North America, so it's very exciting. So we go to 7 more places in the US, 2 in Canada, and we have, so that's until beginning of March, and then we go back to Europe. We generally have a lot of, we usually stay in Europe. We do have a big Australia and Asia tour in May. But yes.
And we've just released our second CD, which has the lyrics read by Albenberg and Erwin Schulhaus, 5 pieces, and Webern, langsamer Satz, slow movement, and 5 movements, yes. And so was released in January. And
I should have looked that up because we actually have some sketches and oh really, for the lyrics suite. Mostly he had some an analysis that he did.
Oh.
yes, of course.
I thought, okay, that's amazing, because this is actually, so this is of course a completely different program than we are playing today, but this music is also very close to our hearts, the second Viennese school, and the lyric suite of Berg is for us somehow also one of our favorite pieces, same as 131, of course completely different music, but those are the 2 pieces that in the last years, I would say, had the most influence on us. Yeah. Sadly, we don't have it with us now.
Well, I feel badly telling you now that we also had not the ones on the sides, but we have other Webern strings.
Amazing.
All of the Schubert strings in the manuscript. So we should,
amazing.
Next time you come back, we should have.
Oh yes. Yeah. Do you have a second strut cello somewhere hidden?
We'll see if we can get it. Well, would you be willing to take a few questions? Sometimes that you have a bit of time. If you could just wait for a microphone to come to you, my colleague Jay will tap you on the shoulder.
Hello, thank you very much. I was wondering, what were your thoughts about the relation of the Große Fuge, Opus 133, and especially the beginning of 131? Because after Beethoven finished the Große Fuge, that was the very first thing he wrote. Thank you.
You already said thank you, but now I have to think what to say to that.
Well, often I actually don't, not in the first movement of 131, but the last movement of the 131, it reminds me sometimes of the Große Fuge, because it is the same rhythm in a way, and it actually also sometimes really has literally the same notes after it. But I think the character is different, but it goes into this in a similar direction. So I think the last movement gets into this kind of direction of the Große Fuge.
But it's interesting because I mean now I didn't know that it was right directly after one another, and it's interesting that there's one fugue that is like the most monumental and really like this is, I mean, the Große Fuge is a crazy jazz rock piece, and then the fugue of the beginning of 131 that we are playing today is so lonely and so weeping, and it's not the complete opposite, I would say, but it's different parts of one spectrum, which is really interesting. Thanks for bringing that up.
Your ensemble is connected, especially with Wigmore Hall, and I wonder, why is it so appealing acoustically and otherwise, and how does it compare with the Coolidge Auditorium here and other venues?
You know the deal with me.
I mean, admittedly, we're gonna have to try with audience because it does change the acoustics. Thank you. But Wigmore Hall is, I think it's one of the first really, I mean, we did have few big halls, but it was because it was during the competition we played, and it was the first time we felt like, I mean, it was 2022, so it was half COVID still. We hadn't had really any big concert before that, and we go up, and it's just, the hall is inspiring. And this is, I think that's the most special thing about Wigmore. But acoustically, I don't know if anyone
So the thing is, the acoustic in Wigmore Hall is amazing because you have really the chance to shape the sound in the second, and you feel like also like a half a second after you left the string, which it's a bit abstract to explain this. It's if you have the chance to grab a cello and go on the stage of Wigmore Hall, then try it. No, but the acoustic here is also great. It's we don't like to compare acoustics so much because it's like it's also always a matter of taste, I would say, and also when the thing is, the Wigmore Hall is the hall we played the most often in our whole career. I think we played there, I don't know.
I think like 8 times.
No more. If you count the competition, then it's maybe 10 or 12 times, which is for us quite often because normally we come back maximum once a year to one hall, and at Wigmore Hall we play 3 times a year. And so you get the feeling of, I mean, we're all based in Berlin, but we get the feeling of being home in London, which is a nice feeling. You know, the audience, they always come back, and that adds to the positive feeling. You connect with the hall. And then so when we come to a new hall, we first have to experience everything.
Work, how does it react?
Yeah, how is it with the audience inside?
How does it sound on this?
Yeah.
How does it sound?
Yeah. Well, we already know part of the audience. It's a really good start.
So then we do the same procedure as we actually did with the instruments. So when we go to a new hall, we have, depending on who is the least important in that part, we send someone down to the audience, hear the 3 others play, and then we see how's the articulation, how's the balance, how soft can we go, how loud should we go. So that's the same we did with the instruments actually. So that's generally how we treat the holes.
Wonderful. I have another question on that.
The other night, there was another violinist, and somebody in the audience had asked him, and you've already addressed this question partially. And his question was, "How did you choose the Stradivarius?" Well, he brought his own Stradivarius with him, so and you already talked about how you chose it. But my question is, How did it affect you? How did you react to it? And does it feel different? Something else in the air on these instruments?
It definitely feels different. As an instrument is very, very personal. So for me, I have a very small viola that I usually play. So now, inches. Wait, it's about
You can say centimeters.
4/5 an inch bigger. Does it work? So slightly less than an inch bigger than the usual viola I play. So my hand does have to adjust. We did have quite a lot of time, which is not enough if you want to play it for a longer time. But enough, I think, to adjust for tonight. And so, but I said that a viola for me it speaks very easily. So. And the one I usually play is just a bit moody, so it reacts on the weather, it reacts on the humidity, and or when the AC is on. So I do usually a little articulation when I think it's not speaking, and when I do it with the viola, it just goes like accent. Oh, sorry. Regular bow? Yeah, regular bow. Yeah. So regular bow, but different viola, and it's just it's completely different. But it's for me, it's been extremely fun to find out what color palette this has, and the choice to have to be able to do so many things on it. It's just amazing.
You know, the instruments, every instrument for us is just a tool to express ourselves, you know? And here we have the finest tools in the world, but still you have to work with the tool, and you have to adjust, and it's a challenge, but with these kind of instruments, it's an extremely fun challenge, I would say.
Also, I feel like the finer an instrument, or maybe this aging like cheese and like wine, somehow I feel like the instruments are have their own personality, and like certain ways that they prefer or don't prefer to be like handled or played, and it was a big learning experience for me to play it suddenly on a different instrument, because I think I've played my current instrument for like over 10 years, always the same, and I think these instruments certainly have so much character, even though they are tools, but they're kind of like almost sentient objects in a way that you're kind of having to work in partnership with. So it's been very interesting.
Also to learn about yourself, I think. For me also was like how if an instrument is this close, perfect, don't want to say perfect, but close, really close to perfect, and then you see what you're able to do suddenly also, and just to explore the things.
But of course, I mean, you can't just play on it like you play on your instruments. It's like, yeah. More questions?
Well, yeah, thank you for all these really good answers. I think we have time for one more question.
I had a question about Henriëtte Bosmans, and I recall seeing an article, I don't know how many years ago, in BBC Music magazine. It was a one-page thing, and in it there was a story about her going down and rescuing her mother, who had been picked up as a Jewish woman, and managed to get her out while ending up herself also out. And is that the right person?
I don't know about that part of the story. I know that she was half Jewish and she wasn't deported or anything, but she wasn't allowed to present her perform and present her pieces.
Because she refused to join the, I forgot what the name is, but it was back then it was from the Germans, and you were supposed to, for artists, and you were supposed to join that, and she refused to join that. So I know that she couldn't play and she couldn't perform for a while.
Yeah.
She was a pianist, right?
Yeah, she was a pianist. Yeah. We have to find that articles. That's very interesting. Okay. We'll find it. I mean,
Yeah, my
already.
colleague wrote some notes on this one, and that she mentions that.
Amazing. Great. Thank you.
Well, I think we should let them, play the concert. After this grueling series of questions from everybody. But please join me in thanking them. They do.
Thank you very much.